So I think we'll start. First up, the statement of acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Okay, attendance. We have apologies from Ashley Fisher, Darcy Hancock, Grace Gallagher, Jade Hancock, and Renee Chamberlain. Motions to grant leave of absence. Are there any motions to grant leave of absences? No? Okay. And I do not believe we have any current standing leave of absences. Excellent. So, non-attendance. Got that recorded or?
Will be
Shay and Talon. I did see Talon on the Facebook group saying that he wouldn't be able to make it, so he might be an apology. Okay, moving on then to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Okay, moving along then. Items listed for discussion. I presume that would be 4.1, not 5.1. But Gawler Youth's accessibility to transport. So this is the reason this special meeting was called, and it was called following a meeting me and Isaac had with the Mayor of the town of Gawler, Karen Redman. Do you want to speak on this, or are you happy for me to speak? How would you like to do this? Excellent. Okay. So the reason we decided to call a special meeting for this is we went to talk to Karen Redman about the vault testing in Gawler, which has been an ongoing issue that the Youth Advisory Committee has been tackling, where last year the vault testing ended in the Gawler region, and we've been fighting to get it back to help young people get on their L's. Vault testing standing for vehicle on the road testing, sorry. Since then, the situation has developed, and we are now looking at next year the Gawler trains basically not running for over half the year. That coupled with the cuts to services SA, which have caused I can never remember the acronym of this one. It's the HPT, which is the hazard perception test, a digital test that you undertake. Because of the cuts to service SA across the state, there are very few locations that offer the HPT, Gawler being one of them, fortunately. But even in saying that, the wait time for these programs has gone through the roof. I think the estimate was 5 months, I heard said. It's gone up to about 5 months wait time for the hazard perception test, which is required to go from your L's to your P's. I've talked to a couple of people since, someone from Port Adelaide who said that they did come all the way to Gawler to do their hazard perception test in recent months. So we're getting people from way outside Gawler coming to Gawler to do their tests because of all the other shutdowns. And I think Adelaide's one of the other places that still offers them. And even then, their wait times are months and months on end as well. So that coupled with the train shutdown and the vault testing and the potential for the buses shutting down within Gawler, transportation for youth is going to be very much in trouble. People won't be able to get their licenses. People are going to be struggling to catch public transport into the city. Uni students will be severely impacted as the lines do shut down. And just generally, it's going to be a mess for people throughout the town. So me and Isaac discussed this with the mayor, and we decided that the best way to go forward with this, as our recent letter to the Minister for Transport has gone unanswered, was to go about it in a different way and approach the youth of Gawler to engage in a media campaign, basically. So to get the young people in the town of Gawler to start writing articles for the bunyip, for the advertiser, even putting some online on Gawler Broadcasting Association was a suggestion by me. And so what we're looking at doing and getting approved this meeting is that as a path forward. So we'll be looking at probably creating a subcommittee, getting some people from the Youth Advisory Committee on that, and yeah, going to local schools and getting them to write articles for newspapers that we can then put out there. Because currently a lot of the discussion that's happening surrounding this is very much happening in SA Parliament, where a lot of young people voices, especially from these districts, will mostly go unanswered. I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, I will just add a couple of things. And I think from the meeting we had with the mayor, what we were really looking at was what direction do we go in now? What are we advocating for? Because we've taken this fort testing thing as far as we can, and coupled with a high youth unemployment rate, the impacts of COVID, it's increasingly hard for young people to get a job, and transport. I've heard some people say that transport is a number one issue for them in gaining and retaining employment. And so the object of this committee that we'd like to form is essentially to look at what the issues are, get a clear outline of what those issues are, the challenges young people are facing, and then bring together young people to look at ideas on how to address those challenges, and ourselves look at how we can address those challenges in cooperation with the mayor, who has been really good throughout this whole process. So we have reached a bit of an impasse with Vort, which is unfortunate, but the new challenges, which Angus did mention, are really impacting on young people, and that's certainly something that I've heard from a lot of people in the community as well. So I think it's would be a good move to form this committee. And we've had from Xavier, when the Vort testing originally happened, we had about 300 people give their signatures in support of reinstating Vort testing, and I think it would be a valuable idea to hear some of the stories and experiences of those 300 people, because I'm sure they have them, and I'm sure that these things are impacting them in very real ways, financially, and in terms of their education, employment, and just ability to engage and be a part of the community. So I think it's really important to look at these things.
One of the other things to bring up on that is that Tony Piccolo's Youth Advisory Panel has also been heavily discussing this. And while we will be looking at keeping this mostly as apolitical as possible, so not siding with Labor or the Liberal Party and trying to, not affiliate with any political agenda per se, besides just helping out the young people of Gawler, their Youth Advisory Panel has also been heavily discussing this as a topic of interest, which is all the schools of basically the local areas, sitting down and having a chat with each other.
I think that bit is important. It's what this is essentially about is it's not a political agenda. It's not that we're seeking to make any big moves at the moment. It's just really taking stock of where we're at, what people are thinking, because we are hearing it from so many people, and then assessing the options that we have as a youth advisory committee to look at solutions for this. And so it is, it's not political in any way. It's very non-committal at the moment. It is just collating information, making sure we've got it all in the same place, and then looking at the solution. That's it.
Yeah. And also, potentially looking at ways we can get those stories heard by other people outside just us. So when we do the consultation, we're looking at getting as many stories as possible and making sure those are heard by the most amount of people who can help with this issue, I think. Okay. I think that's basically it. It is probably going to be a relatively short meeting. However, the seriousness of that topic does need discussion. So, Finn.
Cool. I think I'm a bit out of the loop here, but when was these train cuts announced, and what was the justification for this? Because it seems really massive and abrupt.
It has to do with the electrification of the Galahuawei line. It's a bit blurry as to at what point the decisions were made to shut parts of the train line. But I think that what's planned at the moment is that for 6 months, the train line will be closed from Salisbury to Adelaide. And then for the following 6 months, the train line will be closed from Gawler to Salisbury. And there's currently no direct mode of transport from Gawler to Adelaide. And this is something that's one of the things we'll be looking at as well, is what are the options there, because it is a bit of a it's a long journey that might not be necessary. And so that's what we want to hear, is how is that impacting people? I know personally, university takes 2 hours to get there. Is it even worth going for a 2-hour class, 2 hours there, 2-hour class, 2 hours back? It's 4 hours travel.
Another big thing on that is they have released on their website a map of their predicted closing times, and throughout next year it's a mess. So it'll be closed some weeks and then open the next, and then closed, then open, then closed, then open, and it will really jump between the two constantly. And because of certain restrictions being lifted, so previously if they wanted to change anything, it would need to go into the papers if memory serves, and all that's been removed, so they can just make changes on the fly, which will mean that you might go in 1 week expecting there to be trains and then suddenly nothing, and you waiting on the wrong side, and it's going to be a mess, especially for young people who do catch the trains into school, because I live near the Galahuawei line, and we've constantly got young kids from the age of year 4 sort of age catching the train down to Trinity and just wandering in, and for young kids like that, they will have no idea what's going on. And so it really needs to be, Jack.
I do just want to also add that, towards the start of next year, universities will be going back to on-campus modes of delivery. So we'll have a bunch of new sort of year 12s currently, but future uni students transitioning over. And for them, I know I relied on public transport to get to uni still do. And a lot of the impacts are that it took me a long time to get my head around the train system in general, train timetable, and trying to get there. And with current cancellations and future ones, it will make it a lot more messier and a lot more confusing as to how people will get around, and it'd just be a bit of a nightmare, especially for those already stressed with a new learning environment.
There's another big issue that was brought up, which was the closing time of the train. So apparently trains don't run from the city to Gawler past 8:30 or something like that. I can't remember what time it was, pretty early. And there are university courses in the city that I know of that do run until 9 p.m. on weeknights. And those university students will literally just be stuck in the city.
There was that was something that was mentioned with the mayor, and that's another potential problem. And I mean, we are just talking about a few issues, and of course we won't solve them tonight, and that's the point of the committee. But the way some of the feedback that we got from people some of the things I've heard from people in the community is that the trains wouldn't run past 8:30 on nights where they were running, and they wouldn't know to go and catch the bus on North Terrace. So they thought, people were thinking that they were stranded in Adelaide. People were thinking that they were, stranded at Salisbury. And sometimes there are alternatives, and that's usually the answer that's given, is, these people couldn't get home. It's well, there were alternatives. But we really need to and that's why it's important to hear people's experiences, is there sufficient information around to let people know that these services have been replaced or there's alternative services there? Because if there isn't, then there's no use in having those alternative services anyway, because people don't, if people don't know they exist.
Yeah. Councillor Davies?
So can you just, you sort of explained what's going on, but what's the actions that we're taking in terms of what we're going to move at the meeting?
So at this meeting,
Yep.
I think we'll, do you want to?
So if everyone's happy, I'll move the motion now, and that probably hopefully answer your question. Yes, yeah.
Because I think it could shape your motion, just so I'm just clear. One thing before that though, in terms of that relationship with DIT, not DIPTI anymore, with DIT, also obviously we have our engineering team are working with them around the electrification of the train line. So in terms of that might be another way to start a conversation with DIT. So potentially the subcommittee, we could get Sandeline, our engineering manager, to come along, or someone in his team as well, and see whether or not we can use that relationship to our benefit as well in any way, so worth a try. The other part is, I just probably going to explain this maybe when you move your motion, but I assume you're in your subcommittee, are you looking to plan a plan of attack, or are you looking to start those things with the committee? Does that make sense?
The plan of attack, if we, which I hope we'll have one in due course, is that will be brought to the Youth Advisory Committee, and that's something that we'll be bringing back here. As I said before, the function of this subcommittee is just completely to collate that information. So talking to the engineering team, for example, who are working with DIT, talking to those Xavier students who signed that VAULT petition, talking to people who catch the trains, talking to university students, school students, reaching out to all our connections. That's, we'll be contacting people from council admin, we'll be using our connections that we have on the Yak and to Gawler Youth, and it's just bringing all of that information together into one place so that not only we, but everyone knows what's going on, and then we know how to approach that moving forward.
Okay. Oh, yes.
So is the Gawler train station just going to close down completely for a year, 6 months?
More or less. It will jump from being open and closed, and they'll probably run buses out of there into the rest of Gawler. I don't have the information handy, regretfully, but for the most part, yeah. And I think they've got planned closures until late October next year. I think it was the 20th of October, 21st that they were planning on hopefully being done by. I don't know how, because when they did the electrification project on the Seaford line, I don't know if that ran over time and how much by. So what kind of leeway we should be looking at those numbers with, but yeah.
I'll just clarify that currently the way it works is there's 2 buses from Salisbury. So because the train goes from Gawler to Salisbury at the moment, from Salisbury, there's 2 buses that they run, GA1 and GA2. GA1 stops at every stop along the rest of the train line, and GA2 is a express bus from Salisbury, goes Mawson Lakes, and then just the major stations of Mawson Interchange, and then Adelaide. I imagine it'll be the same for Gawler, so it'll probably be a bus that does just Gawler, Smithfield and Elizabeth, and then Salisbury, and that'll be an express bus. But there's one of the options that we'll obviously look at as a committee is whether we need to advocate for an express bus the whole way, because travelling to Salisbury itself takes, from either way, takes an hour. But if you just travel directly from Gawler, some of the major stops to Adelaide, that takes roughly over an hour. Whereas if you have to go to Salisbury first and then catch the express bus to Adelaide, you're taking a completely different route, which takes up to 2 hours. depending on traffic. So there's ways around it, but yeah, essentially it will still, every stop will be serviced, but it's about time, it's about money, it's about people using public transport. And that's the minister, the former minister, I should say, had this motto, bums on seats, said it every 5 minutes, you know, and that's something we've got to be looking at as young people from even an environmental perspective, you know, how is this impacting use of public transport into the future? So, so I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but, you know, hope that answers that question.
Any other questions? Okay. Might move on to the moving of the, oh, right, clerical question. Should we be moving the appointment of a chair for the subcommittee at this meeting or at the subcommittee meeting? Excellent. Okay, cool.
We do that after this meeting. Is it? Yeah, okay. No, it's, yeah. Brilliant.
And the other thing was we were also looking at, would we need to assign members to that subcommittee at this meeting at the formation or? No.
Is it possible to, I did put something in the group and tag people who aren't going to be at the meeting if they want to be on the committee, to let Angus know. Probably hasn't received any interest, but also, is it possible to keep the committee sort of open for the time being and just establish membership? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Easy. All right. So is everyone happy if I move the motion now? Yeah. Good. All right. So I'll move the motion that the Youth Advisory Committee forms a subcommittee. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask this before. The name of the subcommittee, I think, what was the acronym we came up with? Yes. If anyone has any better ideas, go for it, but it was the, yeah, no, what was it? I can't remember what it was. Does anyone have a, we'll just, yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, so move that the YAC forms a subcommittee for the purpose of investigating the effects of recent transport changes in the town of Gawler on young people. I'll keep it at that. That the subcommittee will deliver a report to the Youth Advisory Committee detailing the information gained from that and making some recommendations if needed, and that the following members be appointed to the committee and take nominations for that now, I guess.
Okay. So do we have any people wanting to be part of that committee? So Brenna, Vin, Jack, and, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm terrible with names. It's Amelia? So, yes, and Isaac. And I'll probably sit on that committee as well. So we got Amelia, Vin, Brenna, Isaac. Excellent. And yes, probably talk about potentially assigning new people at the future meeting, depending on how they feel about that. Cool. Okay. So for the first motion, do I have a mover for that? Oh, you're moving. Do we have a seconder for that? Brenna? Excellent. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Isaac. Yeah. Oh, we can do it as well? Okay, so are you happy to second all the motions then? Excellent. Yep. And all those in favour for the passing of all three motions? Excellent, unanimously carried. So the motions have been carried. Is there anything else we want to discuss on that?
If I could just specify, so we probably, obviously we will need either the chair or the deputy chair of that committee to be at each meeting, but you know, if members can't attend the meetings, then that's, you know, more than fine. But we will, the chair of that committee will have to arrange meetings throughout the next few months just to get together and to give that some direction. But otherwise, you know, members, if they can't attend, then it's not, you know, the end of the world. But also there was something else I was going to say, but I have forgotten.
Yeah, should be relatively relaxed as it is just people we'll be looking at getting people to just bring information back to the subcommittee. So it should be relatively relaxed in terms of attendance and stuff like that. So.
And question for, question about that. Obviously the chair of the committee will probably act as the person who receives the majority of the correspondence for the committee. Are we allowed to create, you know, a Gmail address, for example, so that people are able to submit emails to that address? I'll just, I can leave that with you if that's, yeah.
Sorry, I do keep forgetting to press my microphone. let us confirm with governance. It shouldn't be an issue because, yeah, but let us confirm with them first, okay? And because we can even create another council one that we could use, or so let us figure that out for you.
Okay, I saw Cody's hand first, so let's go.
I just want to clarify on the three motions. Is it a three-part motion or is?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Be, yeah.
Rather than three separate motions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through Chair, sorry, I just probably confused that. I just thought it probably needed to go as a one motion with three parts. Otherwise, it got a bit confusing.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Brenna?
Will the subcommittee also be coming up with like maybe ideas to get around with the transport thing?
Yes. We'll probably be looking at, being as creative as possible on how to solve this situation. So, yeah, suggestions more than welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Vin?
With the train, I guess, disconnection or 6 month disconnection, we're focusing on a lot of, I guess, the youth perspective and voices, which makes sense. But have we heard anything about, I guess, other age groups or other bodies which we can talk to about this for a more unified front?
Definitely. I was planning personally on talking to the course coordinator for that university course that runs courses until 9, because I've been in with them directly, and I think they'd be even though not technically a youth voice, they're kind of in a way representing youth and in a position where they're teaching youth and getting youth to go to their course. So yes, mostly, but it will be mostly youth, I think. Isaac.
This is all done in coordination with the mayor as well, and we've spoken to her, and obviously we are taking this action ourselves, but we are constantly communicating with the mayor about what's going on, in our meeting we did touch on the fact that it does affect particularly older people as well, who may not also have access to a vehicle. That is something which affects them, but the recommendations that subcommittee would make are going to be focused on youth because it is an extension of the Youth Advisory Committee, but also because it's not necessarily one issue that we'll be looking at, and it's the impact of all of these issues across the board, and VORT testing and hazard perception testing backlog. Some of those, only affect the youth demographic, but you're perfectly right. It affects everyone, but I think the stance that the mayor discussed with us is going to be angled towards youth, and we don't necessarily have license to go out there as much as we would like to.
And Jack.
I was just going to expand on what we've been sort of brought up about sort of working with other groups, and Isaac just sort of touched upon it before with the sort of the seniors. Like seniors get free public transport access, and those probably utilise it a lot as frequently as youth. I was just wondering, because there's a few different sort of senior sort of focused community groups around Gawler. Like it'd be worthwhile sort of like examining collaboration with them, especially just like due to sort of like resources and reach as well, and sort of like saying like, well, these sort of areas of Gawler are being impacted by the sort of the closures of the train lines and all of these impacts and such and such. And we can probably expand on a bit more in a meeting, but that's probably something that we could probably consider for the future.
Yeah, and that might very well be something we do discuss as a subcommittee and address as a smaller body, but yeah.
And obviously given Isaac's comments, but if that's something that the subcommittee chooses to do, we can obviously support you to link with those groups. So that would be quite easy, particularly because we have staff who work in that area. But again, going back to Isaac's comments, that may or not be an area that you're looking at linking with.
I think we could probably get away with talking to some people outside their age group, like business owners talking about how they're struggling to get employees who are younger to come out and work for them, stuff like that. So we can angle it towards a youth focus, and that will be definitely the big thing. Okay, so are there any more questions or no? Okay, I think I'll move along then to meeting close. So short and sweet, I call close at 7:09. Next ordinary meeting is Monday the 2nd of November 2020, commencing at 6:30. And subcommittee members, just if you could hang around for an extra kind of 5-10 minutes just so we can have a quick chat with you, that would be ideal. I don't know how long we'll need for that, but excellent. Thank you.